Hey guys, it's Channel Weird. I'm Clyde Lewis, and we're glad to see y'all watching. Of course, we're on Facebook and we're YouTube all over the place, and we're glad to be here today. Had a sort of a vacation over the weekend. Last weekend, went to Cambria, of course, Cambria, California. There, spoke at the United We Stand get together. It was about 300 people, and we had a great time. And so now we're back with Channel Weird and a very, very important and distinguished guest, distinguished author, and we've had him on Ground Zero before, but it's been a while since we've had a chance to speak with him. Paul Levy is with us, and we're glad to have you here on Channel Weird.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here with you, Clyde. Thank you.
It's been a while. How you been?
Totally. Oh, I've been good. I've been over the top busy just as my work gets out,
And fantastic work it is. I mean, I think a lot of people don't know. I mean, I know that one of my favorite books you wrote was about the Wendigo and about just a lot of great things you write about. But recently, though, you've written about something that has always been on my mind, and I haven't been able to put a finger on what it is. But I've talked about it before. I call it a demonic plague of some kind. It's like the idea that for some reason there's this psychological, psychosocial coup d'etat that is going on right now, and you call it Wetiko.
Yeah, and that's not my word. That's this. The origin of the term is Native American. And it's a cannibalistic spirit. It's the spirit of evil. It's a psychospiritual disease of the soul. And just as a modern person, I've sort of translated it into a modern psychological idiom because it's what's happening in the world. The Wetiko mind virus, it's really at the root of all of the madness and the evil that's playing out in our world today.
Now, when you write about something like this, usually, we do a lot of self-assessment. We do a lot of, inner thinking. We're very pensive about what's going on in the world. You're a very sensitive individual of what's going on in the world. You have been for some time. I know that because you and I mean, with what little we've known of each other and have talked before, I sense that in you. I know that you're a person who is very genuine and you certainly care about humanity. The reason why this book was written, I think, is because of that. Because, it's like we all seem to sense that something is not right. And it's not just evil. It's not the idea that there's this evil. It's this confusion. It's almost as if reality is being bent. People are trying to twist reality. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, what that brings up in my mind in the moment is that it's not just that our species is asleep. It's as if there's some sort of negative force that's actually, trying to keep us asleep. And so that's really interesting where, see, the thing about the Wetiko mind virus, it operates through our unconscious so that it gets in the driver's seat of our vehicle, and then our perceptions, it kind of twists and turns so as to feed its agenda, which is contrary to ours. And because it works through our unconscious, when somebody's taken over by it, they're oblivious. They have no idea. They just think they're just acting out their own impulses while unwittingly they're being an instrument for something other than themselves to incarnate into our world. And when everybody's doing that, or when the majority of people are unconscious of that, it creates a world that's upside down and inverted like we see today.
For lack of a better metaphor, people have always, we've talked about the zombie apocalypse for some time. And like I say, lack of a better metaphor, I wish I could find a better one. But I know that there have been different types of zombies in movies and in stories. But this is not necessarily a zombie thing, but it is kind of like the idea that we're all pretty much capable of succumbing to Wetiko.
That's absolutely right. And it is, I mean, the zombie apocalypse thing, we all potentially have Wetiko. It pervades the collective unconscious of our species. And, so when any of us fall prey to it, and like I was saying, we then get taken over by it unknowingly and become the instrument to act it out. In a sense, we become like an automaton, because any creativity is programmed out of us. Because the thing about Wetiko, see, it has no creativity on its own at all, but it's a master impersonator. It impersonates us, but it plugs into our creativity in a way that it turns our own creativity against us in a way that's killing us.
Well, we've been programmed, actually, I think, for the last 16 months to be inhuman in a
Oh, I
way.
thought you were going to say for the last few thousand years,
Well,
but definitely the last 16
it's
months.
been obvious in the last
Absolutely.
16 months. I mean,
Right.
yeah, we've thousands of years of evil, thousands of years of war, thousands of years of pestilence and fighting and ugliness and division. I mean, yeah, for the last what? I mean, but it's been more, I think, evident and pervasive where we're looking at the news and we're saying, why is this happening the way it should?
Yeah.
And we're taking that, like, for example, recently I did a big thing about extremism, and it's funny because it's like all these people that are pointing fingers at extremist views are having extremist views themselves. And it's
Yeah.
like extremist views against everything that we've lived in or that we agree on historically is now being completely taken away. And it's because they want us to forget history so they can repeat it in such a way that would be more evil and more covetous, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, what you're pointing at with reference to the last 16 months, I mean, there's this control of our mind, this mind control through the mainstream media, through propaganda. I mean, it's horrifying to me seeing some of my closest friends who are really smart, well-intentioned people, and they've drank the Kool-Aid and as if fallen under a spell.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get numbers of people like that who all reinforce each other's spell, that's a collective psychosis, and that's Wetiko. Wetiko is a collective psychosis.
It's a good way of putting it. It's like I tell people, and I said this when I was on the air. I said, name a time in history where the good guys have censored people, or the good guys have told people that they can't express themselves, or the good guys have told people you can't do things that are normally what you do under a free and open society. And no one has been able to identify that time.
Right. Well, right. And I've coined an acronym. We were talking right before about making up words, and I'm really into that. So the acronym RTSE, RITSE, and what it stands for is revelation through suppressing exposure. So in other words, the powers that be, when somebody is shedding light on their nefarious agenda or their lies, and the powers that be then censor that whistleblower, that light bearer, all of a sudden they're revealing their own darkness. So encoded in them trying to hide the darkness is the revelation of the darkness. And that's playing out in our body politic.
And it's funny because you bring up the body politic and how the body politic is responding. And what's scary is there are people who are more than willing to volunteer the same type of attitude because they don't necessarily agree with the person expressing. And see, the biggest argument here is there's always been this argument, well, I have freedom of speech. Well, yes, you do. But what they're taking away is not your freedom of speech. They're taking away your freedom of reach. You are being kept from reaching out to people and showing them, like you say, shining a light on the dark corners of humanity.
Yeah.
And when you shine a light, people get uncomfortable. And so if it's uncomfortable for them that you're shining that kind of light because it doesn't necessarily agree with their what they believe, the echo chamber they're in, they immediately label it as evil. And that's an evil in and of itself.
No, totally. And you see, what we're actually circling around, so this virus of the mind, I mean, it was in the Bible, but it got edited out of the Bible. I point out that Wetiko was on the editorial board and it took it out, and it's in the apocryphal text. They talk about this counterfeiting spirit.
Wow.
And what it does is that it impersonates us in this, really this fictitious way. Like we have, it presents us as an image as having limitations and wounds and trauma. And if we identify with its version of ourselves, then we've actually given ourselves away. And then we've disconnected from our own power. We've identified with who we're not, which is a recipe for madness. And that counterfeiting spirit, that is Wetiko. That's exactly how Wetiko works,
right. Well, and it's interesting because everybody in life has a struggle. We all have a story. We all have a struggle. But now it's beyond the struggle. It's now every struggle you have, every shortcoming you have makes you a victim. And so this Wetiko is this idea that everybody's victimized. And if everybody's victimized, then no one's victimized. And that's the problem I'm seeing is that, victimhood is happening to a lot of people because they're abused or they're being, they're being taken outside of their freedom. But it seems that now everybody's that way. everybody wants to start their own self-help group, and they're willing to bully you into having you join. It's
Well,
really
the
bizarre.
thing which is interesting about that is, you see, the medicine for Wetiko, it really has to do with the understanding that we ourselves have this incredible creative power, and we have it 24/7. And but to the extent we either don't know we have it, or we're expressing it unconsciously. But the idea being that when we actually have the realization that we're creating our experience moment by moment,
Yes, we are.
we're creating our experience of ourselves and we're creating our experience of the world, all of a sudden that's poison to Wetiko, and it dissolves that identity of being a victim.
Right. And that's the way we clean it out, is we have to be self-reliant. We have to bring back our humanity. We have to stand for things that I think would reveal the true humanity of people, and that is to love and to be close and to be, and all the things that COVID-19 has done to us has given us the opportunity to distance, has given us the opportunity to lose our empathy. The problem we're having, and with Tico and everything else you're talking about, I always say the problem we're having in the world right now is we have an empathy gap. Where now people are not empathetic for anybody else. They just aren't.
Yeah, well, but the thing about Wetiko, one way of understanding it is that it's a disease where we identify with who we're not. In other words, we think we exist as a separate self. And once we exist as a separate self, then other people, there are others. And then as soon as there are others, there's fear. And as soon as there's fear, there's no empathy. Okay. And so that's why, you see, one of the things that you just said about, the whole pandemic that we've been through, we're distancing and we're disconnecting from our empathy. But the positive aspect is that so many people are saying to me, wow, what's happening is like so dreamlike. And it's even easier to recognize the dreamlike nature of this universe. And that's when you begin to see the dreamlike nature and what that means. That's when you begin to dispel Wetiko. That's something I could say a lot more about.
Yeah, sure. The way that we can combat it, I think, is important, because I think that too many people are succumbing to it and they don't realize what they're succumbing to. And it's like every day. I mean, I've had people come to me that work with me and they say things like, I go through the news every day. I see things every day, and I don't know what's keeping me on this planet. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I just want to go out and jump off my balcony.
Yeah.
Or I just want to hang myself, or I just want to. And it's because all the reality that we've been used to is now being decimated.
Yeah,
it's being rebooted, reshaped, retooled, and no one is. It just feels like no one really in mass is fighting against it. It's almost as if they'll say, well, everything's going to work out. Everything's going to work out for the better. It's all going to work out in the end. It's not going to work out in the end if you take for granted that it's going to work out in the end. That's the way I see it.
No, absolutely. I mean, we're responsible. We're the ones we're all having this dream, a collective dreamlike experience, and it's all of our responsibility. So for people just to say, oh, it's all going to come out good in the end and we're going to live happily ever after or whatever, I mean, that's the mind virus speaking, really.
Yeah, you've never had it so good. That's what I would say. Is that people always say, well, I never had it so good. Well, really? You've had it. I've had it better. I'm sure you've had it better. This no-touch torture that they're giving us now is enough to turn us into machines. And if we're thinking like machines, it's easy to just say, okay, I'm going to get a vaccine that's going to make me more of a machine because they're putting a technology into me. It'll make it easier for you to say, and I don't care what you think, and I want you to be just as miserable as I am. So you're going to do it whether you like it or not.
Yeah. And well, that's why, with everybody that I work with, I share with them that the most important thing with what's happening now with the evil and the madness and the pandemic and the trying to centralize power and control and take away our freedoms is for us to really connect with our creative spirit.
Yeah.
Because we are creative beings.
Yes.
And like I was saying before, if we don't consciously access our creativity, it gets turned against us, not only inwardly,
right,
but then the powers that be of the state are more than happy to take our power and turn it against us if we don't own it ourselves.
It's like making a deal with the devil, and every day people are making deals. We have Paul Levy with us, Wetiko, a lot of books. We'll talk about your books too,
for sure.
And the ways to combat it. It's like I say, a I've said a demonic plague or a mind virus, and we'll talk more about this. This is an intriguing subject right here on Channel Weird. Stay with us. We'll be right back. It's a well-known fact that controversial talk show hosts have recently been censored and even banned on the internet by corporate and political interests. Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero. And in order to counter the suppression of information, we've decided to create our own private digital playground called Aftermath. It's an exclusive online multimedia library featuring a social media platform, videos, audio clips, archive shows, research groups, documents, and a news aggregator. In addition, we're hosting other Ground Zero friendly podcasts like Conspirafact with Wes and Bill, Into the Microcosm with Jimmy Jean, Parawareness with Mr. Gates and Isaac Weishaupt, Opposing Perspective with James Ponder, The Infinite Fringe with Billy Ray Valentine, and several more shows. Mobile apps for Android and Apple are available too. The monthly subscription for Aftermath is only $10 a month. The yearly special for new subscribers during the month of June is only $99. Sign up now by going to aftermath.media. Again, that's aftermath.media. Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis. Have you ever wanted Ground Zero merchandise but didn't know where to go? Well, I want to let you know that we now have our own online store with such items as t-shirts, hoodies, decals, tote bags, and other exclusive specialty apparel. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. Coming soon will be signed posters and coffee mugs available as we are constantly adding new items. So shop today at the official Ground Zero store by going to groundzeromerch.com. That's groundzeromerch.com. It's all over the news, food shortages and scarcity in the supply chain, and the reality is nobody truly knows what might happen in the near future. Hi, I'm Clyde Lewis, and I want to let you know that it's a good idea to plan ahead so you aren't caught off guard. Nothing's more important than having enough food to eat, and we're here to help. We highly recommend My Patriot Supply, America's leading emergency preparedness company. They provide long-term emergency food that lasts up to 25 years in storage. When grocery stores run empty or disasters strike, their foods will be there when you need them most. Act now and secure at least a 4-week emergency food kit full of tasty meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. They have dozens of emergency food storage kits to choose from, along with a variety of other survival products. If the government tells you not to go out, you can have the peace of mind that comes from being prepared. After you order from My Patriot Supply, your food will arrive discreetly at your doorstep. Prepare today, because time is short. Go to preparewithgroundzero.com. That's preparewithgroundzero.com. This coming July 3rd and 4th, Free and Equal Elections is hosting its 7th annual United We Stand Festival in Cambria, California. Hi, I'm Clyde Lewis, and I'll be there along with other freedom-conscious speakers. Free and Equal is a nonpartisan and well-known for their independent presidential debates. Their United We Stand festivals connect people of all ages with musicians, artists, and thought leaders to encourage civic involvement and inspire independent individuals to run for office. For more information, please visit freeandequal.org. Again, that's freeandequal.org. Paul Levy with us, Channel Weird. Wetiko, what is it? It's kind of a psychological coup d'etat. You don't realize how it can overcome your sensibilities, and a lot of people are succumbing to it. They're not catching themselves because I think it's all wrapped up in some political devotion. I think that if you become ideologically leaning to one side to the extreme, this is where it happens. I think that's part of it. I think another part of it is, like you say, propaganda. I mean, where does it begin for you?
Yeah, well, it begins when anybody becomes fixed in one point of view at the exclusion of others, and they're not fluid and not able to reflect and take in reflection from the outside world. But the thing you just said, it makes me want to share something. You see, the thing about Wetiko, it's so amazing because it's an inner disease. It's a inner disease of the soul that actually is able to express itself via the medium of the outside world. And that's an amazing thing. because, like, for example, when Wetiko, if it gets activated in our psyche, it'll subsume the psyche in a way where all the healthy elements begin to serve the pathogen, Wetiko.
Mhm.
And then what happens? So Wetiko actually creates a shadow government where it'll dictate to the ego and colonize the psyche. And the person typically has no idea. Now, what I'm describing of the inner state of a psyche under the thrall of Wetiko, that's actually what's playing out in our body politic with, the fascism that's creeping all over the world. And interestingly, Jung himself, he was super switched on to Wetiko.
Carl Jung.
Carl Jung, he didn't have the name for it. He called it a number of different names, but the one name he called it by the most was totalitarian psychosis.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's really interesting. So in other words, Wetiko, i.e. the totalitarian psychosis, which is an inner disease of the psyche, is actually explicating itself through the outside world. And when we recognize that,
Mhm.
that the outer world is reflecting the inner condition of our psyche, that's to recognize the dreamlike nature, which is to begin to find the medicine for Wetiko.
It's interesting because I was reading somewhere, I can't remember where it was, saying that social media trolling is evidence of psychosis. It's a part of this psychosis where you troll on the internet just to be mean.
Yeah.
Because you're hiding behind your keyboard, you're hiding behind a screen, and you feel it necessary to cut down, bully, tear down people's opinions and people's ability to be creative, rather than entering into discussion. And there's nothing wrong with heated discussion. I love heated discussion. I love heated arguments. And at the end, you can shake hands and say, we agree to disagree, or we both learn from something. But now it's like, I say something to you, you get angry and bully me and troll me, just because you're so emotionally caught up in your opinion that you can't see another opinion. So you freak out and you immediately turn on everybody.
Yeah.
And it's nothing. That's not healthy.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's more than not healthy. It's like you were saying, it's pathological. One way of understanding that, say if somebody is expressing their light and their creativity, right? And another person who's been afflicted with Wetiko, they've killed that part of them. They've killed their soul. So when they see somebody who's actually, embodying the very light that they've killed in themselves, they compulsively in acting out their inner process outwardly on the person, they compulsively try to destroy the other person's light because it's reminding them of what they've killed in themselves. That's Wetiko.
It's an amazing analysis. It really is, because I don't think people really have a way to put their finger on what is being experienced. They know that it's not right. They know that it's uncomfortable. They know that it's happening to them, and they're trying to fight it, but it gets to a point where it's exhausting to deal with people that have already succumbed to this.
Well, in the same way that being with, like, one of the ways of describing Wetiko, it's like this vampiric spirit, in that it actually is sort of this form of, you could say, death taking on life like a vampire. It will literally plug into life so as to feed its pathology. And when you're around people who the vampiric archetype is activated, you hang out with them, and afterwards you feel drained.
It's revenants. It's the idea of being a revenant, meaning that you're dead inside, and you basically, you're miserable in your death that's inside of you, and you want to somehow also squelch the life that is in someone else, because
that's how you get energy, is by doing that. And so the point is, when you hang out with people who are really awake and creative, you feel better when you hang out with them. But when you hang out with somebody who's like, the Wetiko spirit is in them and the vampiric aspect is really activated, you feel drained and exhausted after hanging out with them.
Would you say that the woke culture is caught up by Wetiko? Because a lot of people say that the whole idea of being woke is psychosis.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on that, but what I do know, it seems there's something really pathological about the woke culture and the whole social justice thing and identity politics. There's an unconscious shadow that's informing those things that seems like it might be very much informed by Wetiko.
Because I get uncomfortable with the apotheosis of politics, and I see it happening a lot, and I tell people there's no reason to make gods out of men. No reason to treat politicians as messiahs or those who are going to lead them to the promised land. And they're doing it more and more. It's like, one day, Joe Biden wakes up and he's God, or one day Donald Trump, makes a statement on Twitter and immediately everybody rallies around it and says, oh, well, now he's not president anymore. We want him again for another 4 years. And I shake my head and I go, do you guys realize that these men don't care about you? All they care about is gathering people together to do their bidding. And we have followed them, and we will follow them like the Pied Piper, like rats to the oceans. Yeah. It's scary, and people don't see it. I can scream about it every day, and they don't see it.
And that's what that brings up. I mean, you're totally right. Wetiko is a form of being blind. It's a psychic form of blindness, but it's a peculiar form of blindness because it's a form of blindness that actually has the belief that it's sighted. And not only does it believe it's sighted, it believes it's more sighted than people who actually see. Okay, so that's really interesting because then you begin to realize to preach the light to people whose eyes are blind makes no sense because they can't see. It's way more intelligent to try to teach people the art of seeing. And of course, how do you do that? That's another question.
Do you think that maybe Wetiko, that the consistency of Wetiko lies in the inconsistency? It's almost like it's a double down of the only certainty now is uncertainty, and Wetiko is part of that.
Yeah, and the thing is, as soon as you think, oh, Wetiko is that, well, then it's not that. It's so, it's a trickster. And so you can't pin it down. You see, the thing about Wetiko, it's not only is it atemporal, existing outside of time, but it's higher dimensional. It doesn't exist, even though it informs third dimensional space and time. It's higher dimensional. Right.
It's funny you brought up the trickster because I once did a show and overview saying that more and more Americans today identify with the Joker, the character from Batman, than they identify with other characters, and that's why when the movie came out with Joaquin Phoenix, he got an Academy Award, and people thought the show was brilliant because I think they identified more with the trickster than they identify with something else.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because the trickster archetype, like in my work, I unfold this. I mean, it's totally related to Wetiko, and it's alchemical, it's an alchemy and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. The thing, though, I want to really get across about Wetiko is that, like in the Castaneda books, they don't have the name Wetiko, but they call it the topic of topics, that it's the most important thing to understand in the world today. And I can't get that across, enough, because if we don't understand, and it doesn't have to be the word Wetiko, it can be, there are other names. Every spiritual tradition is pointing at it. Like I was saying, the counterfeiting spirit in the apocryphal text is one phrase. But if we don't come to terms with what these traditions are symbolizing, then we're toast. Then we're fated. We're destroying. We're enacting collective suicide. I mean, that's clear. And here's this incredible new symbolic idea that's been passed down, from time immemorial. And it's actually like the medicine. It's actually showing us, because the thing about Wetiko, it's a quantum phenomena encoded in the pathogen is its own vaccine. That's what's so trippy about it.
I guess, like you said, there are many ways to identify it. There are many ways to look at it. I know that, Wetiko is the Native American term, but I mean, you look at, all kinds of different ways you can look at it. It's the surging darkness, the Satanist viewpoint, if you want to call it, marketing term. Satan is always a good marketing term. Mm-hmm. I mean, these are things that, people I think have embraced and have taken for granted, that they feel as though that even though they say Jesus is my Lord, and even though if they go to church every Sunday and read the Bible, they think that all this is going to make them like Superman, that they're not going to find their kryptonite. And they do, and they don't realize that they do. They don't realize that they can take one Bible or one Quran or the Talmud or whatever they want to take, and they can turn it into a hate book. Yeah. And they do it all the time.
Yeah. No, I mean, people. That's one of the vectors of Wetiko is like people who believe in religion in a fundamentalist, dogmatic way,
right?
And so the thing, you had mentioned the plague, this demonic plague. Yeah, and that's a great phrase for it, because what we're dealing with the Wetiko is evil. You know, not personal evil,
right,
but archetypal evil.
right.
It's what in the Bible they talk about. We're not fighting against, flesh and blood. We're fighting against powers and principalities.
Exactly.
And how I know that is that's how I got introduced to Wetiko. Just in my life, I'm not going to go into the story, but I had this direct, unmediated encounter, not just with personal evil, not just with my own personal shadow,
Right.
but with archetypal evil.
evil.
And it destroyed my family. It almost drove me crazy. It almost killed me. But over the years, I've had the realization, that something was I was seeing something.
Right.
Something was, I was having the, was being, I was seeing something really profound that I don't know why, whether I had a strong enough sense of self or whatever, but I've been able to decode it more and more and more. And that's the very thing that's informed my work.
That's amazing. That it gets, you can get into this discussion. It just goes, line upon line and precept on precept of what we're dealing with here is something that's it's not, you can't taste it, you can't touch it, but you got it, and you see it, and it's happening.
Yep.
Paul Levy with us, Channel Weird. Very, very deep discussion today, and I hope you're learning something from it, certainly. And we're going to tell you where you can get these remarkable books by Paul. Coming up on Channel Weird. Don't go away. Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis. Have you ever wanted Ground Zero merchandise but didn't know where to go? Well, I want to let you know that we now have our own online store with such items as t-shirts, hoodies, decals, tote bags, and other exclusive specialty apparel. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. Coming soon will be signed posters and coffee mugs available as we are constantly adding new items. So shop today at the official Ground Zero store by going to groundzeromerch.com. That's groundzeromerch.com.
It's all over the news, food shortages and scarcity in the supply chain, and the reality is nobody truly knows what might happen in the near future. Hi, I'm Clyde Lewis, and I want to let you know that it's a good idea to plan ahead so you aren't caught off guard. Nothing's more important than having enough food to eat, and we're here to help. We highly recommend My Patriot Supply, America's leading emergency preparedness company. They provide long-term emergency food that lasts up to 25 years in storage. When grocery stores run empty or disasters strike, their foods will be there when you need them most. Act now and secure at least a 4-week emergency food kit full of tasty meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. They have dozens of emergency food storage kits to choose from, along with a variety of other survival products. If the government tells you not to go out, you can have the peace of mind that comes from being prepared. After you order from My Patriot Supply, your food will arrive discreetly at your doorstep. Prepare today, because time is short. Go to preparewithgroundzero.com. That's preparewithgroundzero.com. It's a well-known fact that controversial talk show hosts have recently been censored and even banned on the internet by corporate and political interests. Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero. And in order to counter the suppression of information, we've decided to create our own private digital playground called Aftermath. It's an exclusive online multimedia library featuring a social media platform, videos, audio clips, archive shows, research groups, documents, and a news aggregator. In addition, we're hosting other Ground Zero-friendly podcasts like Conspirafact with Wes and Bill, Into the Microcosm with Jimmy Jean, Parawareness with Mr. Gates and Isaac Weishaupt, Opposing Perspective with James Ponder, The Infinite Fringe with Billy Ray Valentine, and several more shows. Mobile apps for Android and Apple are available too. The monthly subscription for Aftermath is only $10 a month. The yearly special for new subscribers during the month of June is only $99. Sign up now by going to aftermath.media. Again, that's aftermath.media.
Paul Levy with us on Channel Weird. You mentioned, some people you've mentioned in this interview, like Carlos Castaneda and, of course, Carl Jung, and Carol Pearson's another one that comes to mind. All of these people have talked about the dark archetypes, that they are within us, that, they're in our dream time. They show up from time to time. There's certain images, and we've talked about the shadow people, and there's like Heidi Hollis has the dark hat man, and all these other like significant icons, the devil, the demon, and all these things we give them a personification. But the scary thing about Wetiko, the scary thing about the demonic plague or whatever you want to call it, it is a psychological thing. It's actually a psychic. It's part of this, I guess, psychological warfare that we're in the middle of right now.
Yeah.
Truth is a casualty in psychological warfare, always. Trying to find the truth, trying to find something that enriches. You're saying, like art and music and all these things that we bring into our lives. These things are being taken away from us slowly but surely. The idea of censorship and cancel culture and all these things that if I'm uncomfortable with it, I'm going to make sure that you have you're living hell. Your creativity is stifled, and soon everything will be homogenized and pliable, and it'll be a horrible experience. I don't think people realize just how horrible this is going to get. So what do we do? I mean, how are we going to recognize Wetiko, and how are we going to beat it? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the thing about the mind virus, Wetiko mind virus, is that it tries to destroy our creativity, but by doing that, it actually activates our creativity simultaneous, depending on what we do with it. Okay, and the thing about Wetiko, it works through the unconscious, and it only has power over us to the extent that we don't see it. So the most important thing is to begin to see it, to begin to see how it works through configuring events in the outside world, like I was saying before, and via our inner reactions. Mm-hmm. So, for example, like the unconscious, when you see the unconscious, you can't possibly see somebody acting out the unconscious without your unconscious being activated. It's that's just the way it works. And the same thing with Wetiko. When you see somebody enacting Wetiko or an institution acting out Wetiko, it's going to activate the Wetiko in you. But then that's an opportunity to all of a sudden, you see, as soon as we keep it separate and go, oh, that person has Wetiko, like I don't, well, that polarized state of mind, that's evidence showing that you've fallen under its thrall, its spell. So the idea being, when you see Wetiko out there, and then it's guaranteed going to trigger and activate and ignite the Wetiko in yourself, to immediately see that as an opportunity to self-reflect. And, when you do that, you can actually shed light on a darker part of yourself that was operating in the shadows.
I've always felt, and when I call it, like you say, the demonic plague, one of the first symptoms I think of the demonic plague is neglect. I think that neglect is one of the biggest signs that we are in the midst of something that is darker and evil and chaotic. And one of the things that I think, and regardless of how you feel politically about anything, the neglect of our cities, the neglect of people in general, how we treat them, what we do with them, and how now it's almost like humans are service animals. They're being treated like service animals in respect that, we do things to better them, but what do they do for us? The reward is never there. They're always telling us the reward is coming, but it never happens. And so we find ourselves enslaved by those who believe that might makes right. And we don't realize we're enslaved by those who tell us that might makes right. They don't tell. I mean, people, they believe that, well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If they're going to abuse, like, for example, if they're going to abuse people of color, then the people who aren't of color need to be abused as well. Everybody needs to be abused equally. They all need to be treated unfairly equally. They all need to be told that they're racist towards one another, they're bad towards one another, they're horrible towards one. I mean, you keep programming the idea that we're bad. You keep what is the law of contagion or the law of contraction? There's a law of attraction and contagion, and we're in the midst of it right now. We're seeing it manifest. Like I say, the twisting of reality.
Yeah. Well, what you're saying, Clyde, it makes me think, like, the thing about the Wetiko, the mind virus, is that it's contagious, and if you don't actually see it and do your work on it to actually, to transmute it in yourself, then it's going to hook you. And then all of a sudden you're complicit in the epidemic and in the insanity that's playing out. And so one of the key things about, really unlocking, because, my sense is the most important thing is, well, what do we do? Well, one of the ways to unlock is to have the realization of how we're participating in the mind virus, how we're colluding with it through our being in avoidance of relationship with parts of ourselves. So to the extent we turn away from our shadow, or we don't deal with our pain, or we project out our own darkness, all of those are feeding Wetiko.
So are you saying that in order to avoid it, or in order to keep it at bay, we need to understand our duality.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't even say keeping it at bay is one way of saying it. I would even say what the situation we're in, because we have it. We all have it in potential at any moment, just like any of us can fall into our unconscious. And yeah, we want to keep it at bay, but even, in a greater way to actually plug into the energy that's informing Wetiko, because it's holding our creative spirit and our light imprisoned.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the importance of being creative. So it's like, as alchemists, we need to sort of like tap into the very energy that's animating Wetiko, and be able to creatively express it. Because the thing about Wetiko, it cuts our voice. It suppresses our voice, and we're seeing that
again. Freedom of reach.
Out. Yeah, exactly. We see that acted out all over the body politic, where people are being censored and deplatformed and canceled and all that. But that's pointing at the importance of each one of us really connecting with our inner voice, with our true voice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wish that more people would call that out and say this is psychotic. When somebody is canceling someone, even if it's something that you don't even agree with. That's the thing.
Right.
People say, well, I just don't like what he's saying, and I think he should be shut down. All right, whatever. It's like this. People seem to think that if no one's participating in something that they believe is right, they should be shut down and canceled. No, you should have confidence within yourself, knowing that what you feel you're doing is right.
Yeah.
And you share it with others because you believe it, but you don't tear down others if they don't agree with you.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is that we are so easy to tear down institutions, so easy to tear down history, so easy to tear everything down. It's like this whole thing about how America's bad now, America's this now. Yes, all history has past sins. All history has sins in it. And the reason why is because we're human beings. Now, our ability to forgive would be far more stronger. That would be a bond that would be a lot, in my opinion, a lot more healing to be forgiving rather than to be hateful. And that's the difference. Is there's no forgiveness in cancel culture. There's no forgiveness in censorship. There's no forgiveness. It's just one of those things that it bothers me, because people all say, well, people make mistakes. Not anymore. You don't. You make a mistake, you have to go on an apology tour, and they have these show trials you have to go through in order to prove and redeem yourself as being worthy of being recognized by your peers as someone who has humanity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, what you're pointing at, for me, one of the scariest things about what's playing out in our world is, the cancel culture and just the censorship. And the fact that all of a sudden, if you, like you were saying, if you express a difference of opinion than the agreed upon, mainstream consensus point of view, that's it. Your career is over. And the thing I should say, it's interesting, because how I came to, discover the Wetiko thing is, I had this experience in 1981 of, basically this spiritual awakening, in which I was beginning to recognize that we were having a dream, and I was immediately diagnosed as psychotic. And meanwhile, I was diagnosing people who didn't see what I was seeing as the real ones who were psychotic.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I and it was a terrible, I won't go into the story, but it was like being tortured. And but yet I was fortunate enough because I knew what I was realizing was really like profound. And here I am now, a number of years later, and I'm the one who's diagnosing the psychosis in the world. Because you're right, you're pointing at that there is a psychosis. Our species has gone psychotic in a certain way, and we tend to think, well, if it was really a collective psychosis, they'd be running around naked and screaming.
Mm-hmm.
No. It would look exactly like it looks now, where we're destroying the biosphere, the life support system of our planet. If that's not psychotic, I don't know what is.
Narcissists and psychotics don't stop and say, "Am I psychotic?" They never say, "Huh, I wonder if I'm psychotic." They never will say that. It's because they don't recognize it in themselves. Other people will see the psychosis. Other people say, "Wait, you're just being a little bit too overboard here."
Yeah.
And that's funny. If you're stopping yourself and asking yourself if you're losing your mind, chances are you're not losing your mind, because you're having that checkup from the neck up. But most people who are going through their psychosis, they don't realize they are, unless somebody points it out to them, and they're going, "Wow, you're wrong."
Well, that's exactly the way Wetiko works. It beneath our awareness, it takes us over, it possesses us,
Right.
and then we act it out, and we're oblivious to
Right.
that's happening.
Paul, leave you with us in Wetiko. It's an amazing discussion, and we're glad you're here to join us in this discussion because it's very important that you pay attention. Coming up, we'll tell you how to get the books and read up on this amazing, amazing idea, Wetiko. We'll be back with more on Channel Weird. Don't go away.
It's a well-known fact that controversial talk show hosts have recently been censored and even banned on the internet by corporate and political interests. Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero. And in order to counter the suppression of information, we've decided to create our own private digital playground called Aftermath. It's an exclusive online multimedia library featuring a social media platform, videos, audio clips, archive shows, research groups, documents, and a news aggregator. In addition, we're hosting other Ground Zero-friendly podcasts like Conspirafact with Wes and Bill, Into the Microcosm with Jimmy Jean, Parawareness with Mr. Gates and Isaac Weishaupt, Opposing Perspective with James Ponder, The Infinite Fringe with Billy Ray Valentine, and several more shows. Mobile apps for Android and Apple are available too. The monthly subscription for Aftermath is only $10 a month. The yearly special for new subscribers during the month of June is only $99. Sign up now by going to aftermath.media. Again, that's aftermath.media.
Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis. Have you ever wanted Ground Zero merchandise but didn't know where to go? Well, I want to let you know that we now have our own online store with such items as t-shirts, hoodies, decals, tote bags, and other exclusive specialty apparel. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. Coming soon will be signed posters and coffee mugs available as we are constantly adding new items. So shop today at the official Ground Zero store by going to groundzeromerch.com. That's groundzeromerch.com.
It's all over the news, food shortages and scarcity in the supply chain, and the reality is nobody truly knows what might happen in the near future. Hi, I'm Clyde Lewis, and I want to let you know that it's a good idea to plan ahead so you aren't caught off guard. Nothing's more important than having enough food to eat, and we're here to help. We highly recommend My Patriot Supply, America's leading emergency preparedness company. They provide long-term emergency food that lasts up to 25 years in storage. When grocery stores run empty or disasters strike, their foods will be there when you need them most. Act now and secure at least a 4-week emergency food kit full of tasty meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. They have dozens of emergency food storage kits to choose from, along with a variety of other survival products. If the government tells you not to go out, you can have the peace of mind that comes from being prepared. After you order from My Patriot Supply, your food will arrive discreetly at your doorstep. Prepare today, because time is short. Go to preparewithgroundzero.com. That's preparewithgroundzero.com.
Paul Levy with us on Channel Weird. How many books have you written about Wetiko?
Well, basically 3.
Okay.
There's one that's out. There's another one that's coming out this fall, and there's another one that's coming out in 2022.
So, I mean, this is something that you've turned into your own particular science, if you will.
Yeah, but I just consider myself, I'm a translator because this is indigenous. This is wisdom that's indigenous wisdom, not just Native American, but every spiritual tradition. And just as a modern person, I'm just trying to translate it into a modern psychological idiom that can really speak to us because it's totally having to do. I mean, it's at the bottom of what's playing out in our world.
It helps you put a finger on what is going on here. It's like I said, you can't taste it, you can't touch it, but you know what it is when you're in the middle of it, right?
Right, and it helps to objectify it, to name it. Just like in a fairy tale, when you find the name of the demon, it takes away the demon's power. Same thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think a lot of I get people always telling me, you should never talk about the demons. You should never this. I say, if you identify the demon,
yeah,
you know its characteristics, you know what it does, you know what it's capable of doing, what it doesn't do. Because people are always thinking that evil, like I said, I was talking to you earlier, I said, evil seems to have an image. There's this image and action parameter. You can dress somebody up in a Nazi uniform or a mouse suit, or you can put a mask on their face. Whatever you do, people say, "Ooh, that's evil. That's horrible." But it's the evil where it's the evil that's implemented with just a shrug. Is what bothers me, is that people don't realize that evil can also be brought into the reality by just shrugging, say, "Okay." Oh,
Yeah.
well.
No, that's the way it works, just in these little incremental steps of all of us in our day to day, oh, I'm just not going to deal with that. I'm going to look away. Oh, I'll act this out, whatever. And that's the slippery slope. And the one thing that you just said I want to comment on too is that people who say, oh, no, we shouldn't talk about evil or the demons or name them or anything like that. That's Wetiko. That's the perspective of Wetiko, because if we don't shed light on the darkness, well, then the darkness has free reign.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I think more people, if you know the enemy, you'll know its characteristics, you know how it moves, you'll know how to combat it. And I think, you making the effort to put a name on it, you with the effort of writing about it so people can get an idea of what they're in the middle of, I think is important, very important. And that's why I think it's important we discuss it and bring it out in the open, because I think too many times people are told, well, just avoid that. And you can avoid it. You walk outside, you breathe it in. Whatever you walk out, you see it around you. You see the neglect in our cities now. You see,
and it's not just in that. It's like it's in our everyday lives, in our relationship. To the extent that we're unconscious and we're not dealing with our stuff, then Wetiko is beneath our awareness, informing our behavior and shaping our behavior.
Many people feel they don't need a quality of life, or quality of life for that matter. Quality of life is just, it doesn't matter anymore to people. And they're willing to, like you say, bring people into their own darkness. And that's why you get people all the time criticizing people, bullying people, trolling people. If you don't understand it, learn it, understand it, learn about it and read about it, instead of making judgment calls on stuff you know nothing about.
Yeah. And what you're just saying, Clyde, it makes me remember in one of my next books, I've coined another acronym. Like I say, I love making up new names. And the acronym, it's premature comprehension something, like syndrome, I think. And what it is, somebody will say, oh, I hear about this Wetiko thing. What is it? And here, from my point of view, Wetiko is so multidimensional and profound. Right. I've written 3 books. Yeah. I'll probably write another 10. And I start like 30 seconds into describing it, and they say, no, I get it. I get it. Understand.
Yeah, people get a piece of something, and then they know everything about it.
Right.
And that's the way that's the way they read the Bible, too. Well, I heard this, and I read this, and say, yeah, but you know what? The Bible doesn't begin with once upon a time. And then that's because people saying, right. I know everything about the Bible because I heard it, or I had some preacher give it to me. You know nothing unless you read the complexities and understand the complexities of what went into your Bible, what went into your Quran or your Talmud. All of the complexities that go into the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. People just, beyond the Second Amendment, what do we know? It's like right now, your Fourth Amendment rights are being violated because they want to come knocking your door with dogs and with National Guard troops to give you a vaccine. People don't understand that they have rights. They are human beings that have rights and should fight to keep their quality of life up here rather than down here. And that's the thing, is that if you feel that you don't have a good quality of life, it's because you need to go into, you need to be introspect and pensive and understand that, your future is just as important, even if you think there isn't one to have. You need to make it for yourself.
Yeah, and the whole the origin, not just the origin, but that process of trying to improve our quality of life and trying to heal ourselves, it starts within. Because like I'm saying, the Wetiko virus, it's an inner disease of the soul that explicates itself through the medium of the outside world. But when you see that that's actually expressing something in you, then the way in is to go within and to do your inner work, and it's there where you find really the source of the darkness and the source of the light too.
I feel I'm a work in progress up to the point I die. That's the whole point. Is that every
we all
is a
are.
work
Absolutely.
in progress.
Yeah.
As long as you're breathing, you have and the sun rises. It's just one more day to get it right.
Yeah.
They give you one more day to give it right every day, and that's our job as human beings, is to get it right.
Well, and even when you say that, I think about the Dalai Lama, His Holiness Dalai Lama, who's saying, "Oh, every day I'm increasing my altruism, I'm increasing my compassion." And in Buddhism, he's considered to be the incarnation of this great enlightened being. Well, he's an example. He's still growing and enlarging his opening his heart and extending his compassion.
So these books and your writings about Wetiko, where do we find
Right.
the best information? How do we
Yeah.
start?
So on the one hand, I mean, they're in bookstores, they're on Amazon, but I have a website, www.awakeninthedream.com. And on my website, there's a ton of articles, all for free. And you can get my books, and I will, be happy to autograph them. And and then there's a ton of interviews and talks I've given and all that, like all of the stuff like I've been doing this like over 25 years. This isn't a new thing. So it's all available on my website.
That's amazing. And I think it's very important that at least people get an opportunity to see your work and read your work just to get an idea of what we're up against. Because my biggest thing right now is trying to tell people that, if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a noise? If we're being sequestered, if we're being told that we can't express ourselves as human beings, and if we're going to continue to allow this no-touch torture in the middle of, then we're doomed as a civilization. There's no way we're going to pull out of it.
Yeah.
And, I think people need to recognize that this is wrong, regardless of what you're thinking about. Oh, I'm going to die from COVID tomorrow, or I'm going to do this. I got to do what I'm told. You don't. We do not have lives without risk. Breathing is a risk. Walking outside is a risk. Taking your first steps are a risk. And I think people need to understand that, no one's encouraging you to take part in risky behavior, but you need to take a chance on some of the things that you've neglected, like love. Take a chance on love. Take a chance on embracing differences, embracing some of the things that you wouldn't normally embrace. Try to understand them. We're not telling you to, go and do the bad stuff. Try to enrich yourself. And that's the problem. I think people have forgotten. I mean, 16 months is a long enough time to program people into thinking they're worthless.
Yeah, that's true. And it just brings up the importance of connecting with other people who are also doing their work and haven't just fallen asleep into pessimism and feeling despair and depressed, but are actually, in touch with their creative spirit, with their true nature. Because if you remember, like I was saying, well, the Wetiko mind virus is contagious, but then once we plug into who we actually are, that's contagious too. So when you hang out with other people who are also having an awakening to their nature, to the dreamlike nature, to the quantum nature of our universe, then all of a sudden we can help each other. We can help each other to wake up.
It's back to that idea: know thyself. Know what you are, know your duality, know what you're capable of and what you're not capable of, and what you're not capable of. Learn from others who are capable.
Yeah, and to know yourself means to not just know your light, but to know your darkness too. That's part of it. And a lot of people are just like, oh, I'm a light worker, and oh, I'm divine, and all this.
I don't trust that.
Yeah, I run the other way.
If somebody says to me, I'm a light worker, nice talking to you.
Yeah. No, but the idea is to know the darkness within you, because to shed light on darkness is a form of being illumined.
Mm-hmm. Because people will tell you, I'm a light worker, or I'm saved, or I'm this, or I'm this. I'm going, good for you. I'm still learning, and that's why I'm still learning. I'm still doing on-the-job training, and that on-the-job training is my job is living.
Yeah.
And I haven't made that discovery, and I'm not complicit or complacent in my discovery of being saved or finding the light or whatever. I sincerely want to try and continue to grow rather than just saying I've made it. I don't know. I can't say what people can in these times that we live in now. Paul Levy, it was a pleasure having you on Channel Weird.
I feel so honored. Really. Thank you so much, Clyde.
You bet. Channel Weird. Stay with us. We're going to, keep giving you the best right here. And next week, we'll be back with another great guest on Channel Weird. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.